All right, so welcome to the Research Methods Data and Statistics portion. I'm going to slowly walk you through the process of developing Google Sheets so that way you can house your data. That way you can quantify your data without really having to know too much about statistics. So I'm approaching this in the perspective of that you don't know a lot. That's cool because I'll be honest with you, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I really didn't know much about statistics either. So I hope you don't find that to be disrespectful. That's the approach I want to take with this. But on top of statistics, I'm going to show you a few other things. All right, so I have some data here. All right, this is data that you might get. Now, your data definitely should be written or typed out in a format where it is vertical. It makes the data analysis a lot easier. So you want them in columns. So right here I have plant number, the height, remember that's in the metric system, so that's in centimeters, and the color. Before we do any statistics, let's do a couple of things. First, I'm going to click on all of this entire sheet, just for the sake of it. And I'm going to click on Format. And I'm going to go to Alternating Colors. And I get this little pop-up. And what it allows me to do is to change the colors. And that really helps you to distinguish the rows. So I like a bright color, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick yellow. You can include the header or remove it. I usually do. You can even change the colors yourself. Play around with that. See what you come up with. But I like that because it allows me to see the data a little bit more clearly in their rows. Next, I'm going to select these again. And I want to make the font big, so I'm going to make it 14 so it's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to center my data. And when you're ready, and if you want to, you can even create grid lines around your data right here where it says borders. And there's different borders you can use, but I like to use these so that every single row or every single data point has its own column. So you see how this allows you to see the data a little bit more easily and distinguish things. And when you're finally done, go ahead and select all the unused columns, right click on them, and just delete them. I want to delete these columns. There we go. So it makes it a little bit easier to see the data. But do that at the very end. Like that's when you're done with your sheet. But if you make a mistake, just undo it and you're fine. Okay, so what I have here is my plant number, my height, and my color. This is great because I have qualitative and quantitative data. And in any research experiment, you probably are going to have both. Remember, for science, we tend to focus with our quantitative data because that's where we can put or expose to statistical analysis. All right, so I'm going to start with the basic stuff, the basic information we want. First, I want to do a count. So a count, I'm going to go ahead and write that here. A count is just telling me the total number, okay, the total number. And so I wrote count here, and I'm going to go into the column next to it, and I'm going to put equals. And I get my little formula. And I'm going to put C-O-U, oh, there it is, count. I'm going to select it. Well, what do I want to count? I actually want to know how many plants I have. So I'm going to select all of this, click enter. I have 8 plants. But this is really good if you have 100 plants, 1,000 plants, or an odd number like 287, 124. And this will always be adding as I add. I'm sorry, it's not going to do that because I quantified it, right? I limited it to these specific ones. So let's redo it. I want to do equals count, and I want it to count any data that falls within these brackets, right? Hope I did that right. There we go. I'm making a bunch of mistakes there. Okay, so I went ahead and extended the count. So if I do it one here, it adds it. One here, it adds it. One here, it adds it. But notice if I put anything here, it doesn't add it because I didn't include it in the equation. So that's okay. We could just go ahead and delete all that. We're going to undo all that. And what I can do is I'm going to move count over here equals count. And I want everything from here all the way down to the bottom. And it goes down to 1,000. Okay. So what that will do, I'm going to ignore this. I don't need that. So what this does is that as I add data points, it keeps track. So that's a great way to get a total count. Even when you're all the way at the bottom over here in these weird numbers, you have a total count. Okay? So you can do that. So count is very good because it allows me to count how many are in my sample. So next, what about sum? I want to get the sum of something. I want the height. So I can do different sums. So let's do sum. And let's do, so we have our sum. I need to change this sum actually. Let's change it to sum plant number. Okay, and I don't like how that's filled, so I'm going to extend it outward. I'm going to do equals sum. What do I want to get the sum of? I only have these, so I'm going to give you that. Well, the sum is 36. If you need the sum of something, that works. But I can do the sum of height. So I'm going to do equals sum. Give me the total here. Now, all of these heights combined is 69.6. But I'm not going to be able to do a sum for the color. If you feel this data is valid, you can use it. I'm not saying you have to use it. I'm simply showing you how you can do that. Cool. So I have a count. That's a really good thing to do if you want to. You can use this in education for taking attendance or a variety of other resources. If you want to see how many students tested, how many students took the quiz, things like that. So that's just count and sum. As you know, sum is the total of all the numbers, and count is the individual addition of every single value. And you determine what cells it's going to be checking, right? Now, for our first statistical product, we want the average or the mean. We're going to use mean. So I want to know the mean height. So actually, I'm going to give it a better title. Mean height of plants. And it's going to be in centimeters. Whoops. And we're going to move this over here. All right. So equals, you could put average. That might help you, but let's just do, I'm sorry, we have to put average. What was I thinking? You have to put average, and it starts with average deviation. So you want to get this one that says average. What do you want to get the average of? I want the average of this data. Click enter. The average plant height is 8.7. This is going to be very important. Now you all know how to get the average. You add everything up and then you divide by the total number, right? So we would add all of this up, which equals to 69.6 and divided by 8, right? Well, let's give that a shot. Let's try that out. So let's do mean of height of plants in centimeters, and I'm going to do part 2. Oops, that should say part 2. Okay. Now that I did that, can I get the exact same result, the exact same mean, but a different way? Sure. I'm going to put equals. Now I know that it's the total number of height, which is 69.6, and I'm going to divide by the count. Let's see what we get. 8.7. So you need to set this up the way you want to do it. I would preferably do it through just putting in AVG to get average, which I'll show you again. That's AVG. There we go, average. Or you can actually set it up where you do the math. I mean, it's still stuck there. Or you can set it up where you do the math where I tell it, I want you to get this number and divide it by this number. It's up to you. The result is the same. But once you set it up, you don't really have to change it. The last thing I want to show you is this. This is not a statistical thing. If we go to, let's see here, view, and we're going to let me start over. We're going to select this column. We're going to go to view. We're going to go to freeze, and we're going to select one row. Boom. Why do I do that? Look, row 1 is not going to move. The data moves, but row 1 doesn't. So this is going to be very useful when you have a lot of data and you're working over here like in the 80s and you're putting in data. It will automatically generate up here as long as you selected the correct cells. But look, you'll always know which is the plant number, the height, and the color. So set this up, give it a shot. I want you to see if you can get the exact same data that I got here. Okay, thanks.